here I was in my 30s. I'm a successful person. I'm a professional, right? All of these things. And I'm like, what is my purpose? And then it hits me over the head and changes the trajectory of my life. I have an unplanned pregnancy in a very new relationship. Things end up going left, and I lose my child to an unnecessary adoption. And just learning all of that and realizing kind of what happened after the fact really brought me to my purpose. Not that I wasn't a good mom before or a professional before, but now I have a really big purpose, I think. I'm taking on this industry that has just kind of been able to run wild, if you will, and maneuver unquestioned without anybody kind of using a critical lens to really look at what is going on and how they operate and what they do.
I tell people that before my DNA surprise, I really knew nothing about adoption and nothing about what goes on in the industry, and we need to call it that. And so I think there's a lot that we need to explain and approach for people. There's a difference between foster adopt and infant adopt. And the whole savior concept permeates our culture, right? We're going to save the children.
Everybody wants to save a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to save a baby, right? But the fact remains, to your point, there is vast differences, and this topic of adoption is just so complicated, so complex, and has so many different aspects that influence each situation. So every situation kind of has to be taken on its own merit, right? You cannot just paint with a broad stroke, and it's really complicated, and it takes a very long time to really get people to understand all of those things. But if we really come down to it, the crux of everything is understanding what maternal separation and what family separation does, and that you can't fool DNA, right?
It
It doesn't,
matters.
right? It does. Still today, even when someone says adoption, they immediately just, all of that goes out the window, right? They just dismiss it. They're like, oh, okay, well, this is great. And everybody doesn't really question why. So what my goal is to really get people to really lift the rose colored glasses and go, why is that child being separated from this family? It's not the
I
child's
think that,
fault, right?
right, right. Yeah, we're innocent bystanders in our conception and how we come into this world 100%. But I think there's a lot of misunderstanding or misinformation about, I use the term genetic mom. I know some people prefer natural mom, first mom, birth mom, biological mom, so many different terms. Can you help a little bit in this area to help a little bit of understanding? Because I know most people have a long way to go to understand the perspective, your perspective.
Yeah. The terminology, everyone knows the term birth mother, right? That has been used in this conversation, in an adoption conversation for a very, very long time. And many people are extremely sensitive to that. So if you've been around the adoption community, everybody kind of understands that baby scoop era, the 40s up until it says the 70s generally, but I really think that's gone into the 80s even. I mean, we still had women being sent away into the 80s and even the 90s. The Liberty Lost a whole podcast just came out with Abby, and that happened 18 years ago. She was sent to a home, and the goal was for her to relinquish her child. The sensitivity around terminology is something that for me, I guess it doesn't matter. I have a term that I use, first mom, but the baby scoop era moms didn't really have a choice, right? They were sent away, they were forced, and so they have a problem with it, and they have a right to have that problem.
And what do you say when people say, well, first mom's relinquished? You gave
True.
up your baby.
I'm still a mom though. You can't
Mhm.
I'm still his mom. I was his first mom, and there's nothing that you can do to take that away. Again, circling back to that DNA, right? It matters. I think everybody has their own preference, and that's okay. But the birth mother term, if you will, in any kind of marketing, any kind of PR type of things to get attention and to get in front of these moms before they start to tangle with an adoption entity.
Do you want to go into a little bit about that? What happens, the pressure that women experience? Because I think nobody really understands. There's not a
Yeah,
lot of information out there about what goes on for a mom who's found herself pregnant. And again, I just want to point out it takes two people to make a pregnancy. So,
it does. It does. It does. But here's where that complexity comes in again, right? So just because it takes two people doesn't mean that both both of those two people have rights. So if you are an unmarried father, you do not have right. You don't have a right to parent your child because you haven't proven that you're that child's father. Now, if you're married, you are considered the legal father in majority of states. So if you are an unmarried father, which I've got two right now that I'm working with, their children have been adopted out to agencies that they did not have to sign. They didn't, they literally did not know. And so that's just another, what I call a loophole. There's so many loopholes. And that again, this process is complex. The topic is complex. Fathers really just don't understand where their rights are and what rights they have, nor do the mothers, right? So I'll just quickly go through the father side of it, right? Many states have, and some states do not, have what is called a putative father's registry. So, what that is supposed to say is that every time a man has sexual relations where a child could be produced and he potentially wants to raise his child, he is supposed to and expected to file a piece of paper with the state to say, I had sexual relations with this woman. And if there is a child produced, then I want to exercise my right to parent. Now, I don't know
yeah,
many men that are going to do that.
I have
And
three boys. They would never do that.
right, or 50 for that matter. It's not
Yeah.
great because A, they don't know what the purpose of it is, and they don't understand how important it is for that situation. And B, they just don't know. People do not
Yeah.
understand this until unfortunately it's too late. And then flip into the mom side of things. It's exactly what happened with me. And like you, I had absolutely no awareness of anything adoption. I didn't know anybody who was adopted. I didn't know anybody who had relinquished a child, and I didn't know anybody who had adopted a child. So I like had no visibility into that. But as I got into this crisis pregnancy and I really started to freak out and panic, which is exactly what I did, all of these things that happened that I didn't know were happening. And I look back now and I'm like, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what to say. They knew exactly how to say it. They knew exactly how to present it and not really get me to take a step back and go, okay, let's talk about really why you're doing this. What is it going to take for you to even try to parent your
Who's
child?
who's they, Renee?
I have many words for them, but I'll just say the adoption entity, the
Okay.
professionals, right? I'm using air quotes, the professionals. There's a lot going on in this industry from an adoption entity perspective. And of course, the number one thing, you call it, it's an industry. I spell it with a dollar sign for an S. It's an
Mhm.
industry,
Mhm.
and it's all about the money.
Right.
And I, to your point, had no idea, right? I did not have any concept that someone was going to be paying tens of thousands of dollars for my child. It blew my mind when I found that out.
And you said crisis pregnancy. You're in a vulnerable space yourself. There's a lot going on for women in a crisis pregnancy, right? And so you're already coming at it in a vulnerable space.
right.
and these people know the right things to say. I'll use they know the right things to
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Most moms, and these are our stats, and these are also Gretchen Sisson's stats, her book Relinquished, 50% of pregnancies are unplanned, right? So people are not walking around trying to get pregnant. So now you add any kind of a crisis or a stressor in that situation, and the number one thing is money, right? How am I going to do this alone? Even when you have a secure relationship and a family support and all of that, it's still scary being pregnant. Things can go wrong. There's a lot of things that can happen. But now you add in financial crisis and you have lack of social support and all of these things. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, and a pressure because you have how many people are waiting to adopt an infant versus how many infants are available to adopt, right? I know you know those numbers
I
are
do.
high.
There's about 45 couples per available infant waiting. So it is an absolute supply and demand situation. It's literally commodifying these infants and children.